that
All right, we're back.
that in that moment it like changed my life, but definitely in a good way. And not even you probably didn't even tell me something I didn't already know, but just
Exactly.
hearing it from a male perspective just like made it official for me. Because people could tell me all the time, oh, like even till this day, people are like, y'all should get back together, y'all were so good, and da 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 da. And I'm just like, it's much deeper than that. And even on a spiritual level, like, it bothered me that we weren't married, because he's like, I didn't even know you cared about any of that. And I was like, dude, like, after I had my kid, I found Christ, right? And I valued myself, and I was like, dude, every day I repent for the same sin. Every day being with you out of wedlock, and having sex with you out of wedlock, having a kid, like, I repent it every day, and it gets spiritually exhausting. And how do you not care about your own afterlife doing the same thing too? So that bothers me. So I don't know. It's just
No, yeah, no, that's good that you're able to be honest with yourself and try to figure it out. Especially for your child. And because I know a lot of moms or relationships or whatever, because like in the system of divorces or kids that don't have that the kid goes with one parent or the other, a lot of mothers that are angry with the fathers, they use the kid as a way to pay them back because they secretly hate them. So that's good that you like really want to put him first and make sure that he's still in the father's life. And because especially
totally
if he's a
split
boy.
Noah 50-50.
Yeah, he's his son too, and like he needs to have his father in his life to be able to see what a man is. And even if he's a poor example of a man, he's still you have this longing for a father, your own father. And if you get a stepfather or whatever, it'll never really be the same. They could be a good example, a role model, but they're not their father.
It'll confuse a kid, and it never. Like, I think you asked me that question too about, or I told you maybe without asking, like, that once you have a kid, the right way to do it, as hard as it is sometimes for the parents to see it, is that you should not bring another man, or the husband should not bring another woman into the life until that child is of age, because what should matter is that kid just has mom and dad. Even if they're not together in the same house, he has his mom and his dad, and there's no one else that gets in the way. Because in the end, if the parents are hooking up with a step person, it's only for their benefit. It stems from that. You're not doing it because, oh, I'm looking for a role model. You're doing it because you want companionship.
Yeah, or sex.
Or you want sex. Yeah, you want that feeling. But you got to overcome that, and don't let that pull you in, because that's a setup.
I just feel like, I don't know, I have to think about that one, Richard, just because I feel like people tell me all the time how different I am, and I feel like I'm level-headed enough to not seek it for those reasons. And I love Noah so much that I wouldn't necessarily put another guy. I don't know how to explain it, but I get where you're coming from, because I've seen multiple situations where people put their husband, maybe marry before their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
your love.
I'm definitely aware of that.
Yeah, if you bring another person into his life that is not his father, you are you're going to divide your attention and your love now 3 ways, and there's no avoiding that. And people have to face that, realize that kid needs your undivided love and attention, and don't bring another person in.
So
just wait, it'll pass. You won't even miss it. He'll become 18. You kick him out of the house, and then you're free, and you can go date and marry someone else. And that's the right way.
Oh my gosh.
She's like, I cannot think about it. But we're not telling you what to do, like, you do whatever you want to do. But it's definitely interesting to think about, like, because it's true. Like, I had my parents growing up, both of them, but they weren't happy together. And my worst fear was that they would get divorced when I was a kid, and that I wouldn't have my parents. But then when I grew up and realized how dysfunctional it was with them together, that them being together, they stayed together for us. And that affected us too, like just as bad almost, So, but if I had a step parent,
and that was the drive motivator for me to, honestly, in the relationship. I was just like, hell no, that this is complete dysfunction. and I don't want him to learn to function in dysfunction, right? So
Exactly.
I just was like, this isn't. We're gonna remain good parents, and nothing's gonna change as long as you're happy. I genuinely wish him the best. He didn't want to hear this. He's like, don't pull that movie shit on me. But honestly, I genuinely wish him the best. And if he goes off and marries somebody else nice, as long as they treat our kid good, you know, I hope he finds whatever he's looking for because he's a good guy. But yeah.
Yeah, and your kid is learning by every time you do the right move and you do it the right way, you don't back talk his father in front of him. He never knows of your problems.
Yeah.
It sets a great example, and he'll know what love is, how he should treat a woman, what's not acceptable, that he needs to get married first, not sex out of wedlock, and he will be that perfect man. But you have to be the perfect mom.
It's interesting because kids, like, whatever their parents are, because they look up to their parents as, like, their God, and, like, wow, my parents, like, whatever the way they're raised in is their normal, you know? And that's what I think about whenever I have kids, if I ever have kids, is, like, how I grew up. I always thought that I was, you know, had the best parents, and it set the standard of what parents should be, right? And then you get older and you really start to see. I examined myself and saw that I was angry inside and I didn't know why. And then when I saw the imperfections of my parents and that my standard was not, it's not what was actually really the right way. Like, you know, it was a you could draw a square and you could make a perfect square. And I thought my square was perfect, but it had a lot of like squiggles in the lines. You know, you grow up and see, like, damn, that square is not perfect.
The square was jacked.
That was a messed up square. But yeah. I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, the important thing is you're doing the right thing. You feel better, and that's how you know. There should be no thoughts in your head. You shouldn't have to convince yourself or talk yourself into it or out of it. It just is a gut feeling that you know it's the right thing to do.
Oh yeah, and I don't make one decision without asking God first. So when I did it, I felt immediate peace. I wasn't sad. I wasn't anything. I was just. And that was kind of just confirmation that for now this is just what's best for me.
Yeah.
So do you think it's better to see when you're right or when you're wrong?
Definitely, I want to know when I'm wrong.
That's good. Most girls do not want to admit when they're wrong.
Yeah.
That's so true. It's so hard. I'm not even gonna sit here and act like I don't pretend that I'm always right, but I am very good at admitting when I'm wrong. So.
No, that's good. I know that the world these days, like, people are, like, so combative, and it's about debates, and they want to prove who's right and who's wrong. But I think, like, especially in a relationship, you know, with someone that you're trying to start a family with or whatever, that a good man will find, a good woman will find a good man who she'll be inspired by, where she doesn't, she's inspired by him enough where he's going to lead her out of her emotions. Because, you know, it's in a woman's nature to be more emotional, more nurturing, and, you know, she bears the child and nurtures the baby and breastfeeds or whatever, and the man would be the provider of going to go, you know, protect them, and, you know, it's just in our, like, nature, and he's more logical, so it's like that order where...
But you know the one thing about being a woman and not being emotional is I get accused of being a psychopath.
Yeah.
That they take it as, oh, you're crazy. You, like, my grandma asked me the other day, she was like, you know, I've never seen you cry. I've never seen you upset. Do you get upset? I was like, I had to think about it. I was like, when I'm on my period, I think I get upset.
Were you close to your dad?
But my dad passed away, but when I was 11. But I had a stepdad since I was 5, and we're close.
Is your stepdad white or black?
He's black.
He's black.
Both my parents are black. Yeah, they're both black.
Okay.
Like my ex, he's Hispanic. He's El Salvadorian, but he would tell me all the time, like we would talk about each other's culture or whatever, and I'm like, you know, I'm black, right? He's like, you don't count. I'm like, I look at my skin like I'm definitely black, but he swears up and down that he's like,
well, you're only
like a different kind.
You're only black if you vote for Biden.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Did you see that video?
Yes.
I'm sure it's going around. Isn't that kind of funny though? Like I saw that video and I know that it's like I don't see it as I know he was joking, right? But at the same time, it's like, if say like Trump said that, all hell would break loose, like, you know, because
Oh man.
now that I'm like old enough to really like start to see the bullshit in politics and stuff like that, the thing that I see is like, you know, I grew up in the music industry and everybody, if you're in the industry, it's like you're on the left, right? And so I just see objectively that the left is always like, you know, equality and racism is bad and whatever, like, you know, like the most, and then, you know, they'll say stuff about Trump, but then when Biden does it, it's like it's no big deal. And so I think the people on the right are lashing out because they're like, now it's payback time. It's all dysfunction. It's like,
that's the word. It's just dysfunction. I'm very confused. Like, I wouldn't consider myself Republican, but I'm definitely not so far left that I'm blinded, and I don't see that there's a double standard in our politics. You know, so.
For sure.
I think they call me a libertarian because I go for what's right. I'm not Republican. I'm not all the way Democrat. I go with what makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
I've had people tell me I sound like I'm a libertarian too, and I haven't dove in to see what all the definitions are of things, because I don't really want to. I'm not into labels of like attaching myself to saying I'm this or that. Like the doctor's like, you have ADD, and I'm like, well, I got ADD, and that's why I'm the way I am.
That's those boxes
you know,
that he was
like,
talking about.
Like I don't want to be in a box. Like you said, I like to just try to figure out what's right, and you know, thing by thing, and individuals, and
it's like what someone says. What Christians were originally called were people of the way. We should only seek the right way to live, and that's my box. If I have a box at all, it's the box of living the right way.
No, you live in a box.
You know, I don't want to. I'm not going to be. I don't need a label. Like I may vote Republican because that's the closest thing to my values, but that's not the box I live in.
Yeah, it's your values, right? So. Yeah.
That's amazing.
But just telling you guys that your show is amazing, and obviously I'm Trevor. I'm obviously your biggest fan, obviously. But
no way. Well, you must be a fan because you blow me away. No, I appreciate your support, and it's always fun to hop on my Instagram and start singing, and you're always in there. I appreciate the support.
Yeah, and anytime you got a question, you can always reach out, like, you know, anytime.
Holler at your boy.
For sure. So yeah, I just wanted to finally call in so I could finally say my name out loud, and yeah, that's it.
I'm glad.
Appreciate it.
You got a lot of fans in the chat now. They all love your voice.
And now I know it's Genetria, not Genetria.
Yes, it's Genetria. Or nobody really calls me that. Everybody calls me Jay just because it's just easier. But...
Jane?
Oh, and one thing I just have to ask, because I just want to know if anybody knows, but one thing that bugged me about my ex is that I never heard him say my name once. Out of 7 years I've known him, he's never called me by my name. Not my real name, not the name that I go by, nothing.
What does he say?
Like,
hey, boo.
well, how does he get your attention? No, he doesn't call me anything. He'll just come up to me and talk to me. And I called him out on it, like, maybe a couple of years ago. I was like, I've never heard you say my name. And
say my name,
I've never had to say it.
Here, I have a question.
Know why that bugs me.
Does he live at home with his parents?
Huh?
Does he live by himself, or does he live with his parents?
No, he lives by himself.
Well, that's good.
But he definitely comes with his fair share of mommy issues.
Like T said in the chat, what does he say? He just says, "Hey, black girl."
Well, he's black too, right?
He wouldn't even say that. He literally doesn't call me anything.
That's so weird. That's because he sounds like he's scared. I mean, the fact that he hasn't got over his parents, and like you said, he has all these mommy issues. There's fear there.
I mean, he definitely has a very fucked up background, but I don't know. A part of me thought that me and Noah would fix and heal that for him, you know?
That's that
but
ego.
He still
That's that ego, yeah. You guys can't.
Yeah, I can't. So once I realized that, it kind of also ruined it for me too, that me and Noah would...
Yeah, just, all you can do is be a righteous woman. You can't, none of us can wake anybody up. Jesse didn't wake me and Trevor up. He just shared the truth, and you point the way back, and it's up to us to listen or keep suffering and ignoring the message. You know, so it's God who God wakes us up, and all of us should just be like an arrow, point the way back towards the light, towards the right way to live, and that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for calling, and that's awesome that you're able to get the courage to call. I don't know if you were afraid or whatever, but it's good that you did. So, nice to talk to you. I know your name, and I know you again.
All right. Well, I'll see you on the next one then.
All right. Thanks. I'll see you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Got it.
That was a good call. I'm so glad to finally talk to her.
No call is good.
No call is good. But yeah, you guys heard it. Like she had an epiphany off just a stream of Trevor sharing it, and then we were in a chat. Everyone's sharing that same message that like why buy the cow when you get the milk for free?
It's true, and you know it's like, and it's not me. You know what I'm saying? It's the truth. Like everybody has the truth written on their heart somewhere, and that's what God's voice is, right? Like a lot of people think that they hear God in their head and like God told me this or that, but I found that God's voice pops up in so many different ways, and that's that bing, that light where you read something, you hear someone say something, and you just know it to be true. You know, that's the voice, and it's not a specific voice. It's not my voice talking in my head. You know, it's just this knowingness of when you hear it, you know it, and it guides you, and it's intuitive, and it's weird, man.
Yeah, it's just the truth, and it's not my truth.
Yeah.
Or Trevor's truth. It's the truth.
And it's funny, like, 'cause I didn't really grow up reading the Bible like that, you know, but like I feel like a little while ago, a few months ago, I opened it and I read, and I opened the first beginning of it. It says, you know, what does it say? I don't know word for word, but it was like, in the beginning, God divided the heavens and the earth, or he something about the darkness. There, you know,
He separated the darkness from the light.
And he says that there was a void, right?
Yeah. In
the darkness, and God said, "Let there be light." And I was like, "Whoa!" Like that's all I needed to hear in that moment, and because I got so much out of it, because in life, you know how there's this empty void, and we want to fill that void, whether it's with like sex or alcohol or drugs or like even music or food or whatever.
Animals.
It's like it's this void, right? And we just feel like we don't want to deal with it. But if we don't fill that void with something of playing God ourselves and being like, oh, I need to do something to fill this void, then God says, let there be light. And that's where God comes in and fills the void. And it's awesome. And it just is a matter of walking towards that uncomfortable feeling. And I read that and I was like, man, I'm going to stop right there just so I can marinate on that.
That's kind of, now that you say that, is exactly how it felt hearing Jesse. And once it clicks, like how it clicked for Janitra, it literally was like that. It was like this darkness in your head, and then hearing that truth, it was as if God just said, let there be light, and boom, you can see yourself. For the first time, I'm seeing me instead of just seeing everybody else.
What do you look like?
You know, I look nuts.
You look what?
I look nuts. But yeah, it's simple. Life is simple. The truth is simple. You know, nothing should be a big deal. Not if your child dies, not if your wife dies, not if you die, not if nothing, not if your house burns down. It's not a big deal. You just gotta deal. You just deal with it. In that moment, you deal with what's in front of you, and you go on. Nothing should destroy you or make you hang up and just give up and quit. You know, like I did that with my father when he passed, and like some friends who went the same thing, they let it ruin them. And then when my mom passed, it was completely different.
Your life is in ruins.
Yeah, but it was different.
Remember to tell people, hey, you're just a rock in my shoe.
Yeah. You know, just keep it simple, stay out of your head, and forgive your parents for God's sakes. So, Smitty, call in. Evan Root is slipping, so hit that number. We haven't heard from you, Smitty, so we've got to at least hear from you once. Buy her a tone scraper.
People know to call in. If they want to call in, they'll call in. If they don't, they don't. They don't need no more pressures of the world. You know what I'm saying? But the number is 818-308. Is that right? 5559.
Question for you from Team Warrior. If a man meets a beautiful woman and her breath smells like old bus seats, does he tell her or leave her alone?
I'd say he gets the hell out of there. Just get out of there as fast as you can. Or maybe you just hand her a stick of gum and wink, and then peace out.
Is this Seth?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, this is Seth again. Hey, guys.
What's up, bud?
Seth again?
Yeah, he was from Oregon, Salem.
Did he call today?
I've
a
called
couple
you guys
streams
once
ago.
before.
Yeah, how
What's
you
up,
doing,
bro?
Seth?
It's going good. I just, I didn't want to call in when you were talking to someone or when you guys were talking about something, so just waiting for a break in the flow.
What's
No
cracking?
worries, man. What's on your mind?
Oh, not much. Not much. I took a spill on these, like, when I was a teenager, I got these things. You know what a ripstick is?
A ripstick?
Like a skateboard. You kind of wiggle on it like a skateboard.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Like a snake?
A snake.
Snakeboards? Where you wiggle
Yeah.
back and forth to move forward?
Right. Yeah, I got some things like that when I was, like, probably 15. But they're two separate platforms you stand on with each feet. And then, anyway, if you fall off them, it's bad. And I like to push the limits and go pretty fast. And I fell, like, 3 days in a row. But yesterday I really hurt my arm, so... And then I had to work, too. And I cleaned the floors at a grocery store, so... I had to push the thing with one arm, push the broom with one arm, and then push the machine with one arm.
Ouch. Yeah, that's why I don't mess around with a skateboard no more. I used to be a skateboarder, and I
know everybody's telling me you're not a kid anymore.
Yeah, I mean, have fun, but you gotta be realistic. Like you should be conditioned and trained. And the older we get, we gotta be on top of it, or we're
But
risking it.
I'm not a kid no more, so I must skate. Yeah.
Info.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about Trevor's question? What's your answer, Seth? Do you prefer, is it better to see that you're wrong or see that you're right?
Oh. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what the question, probably. I mean,
If you had to pick one in life to go by, would you is it better to see when you're wrong or see when you're right?
well,
What's going to guide you?
what's the history of my life? I would have been better off admitting when I was wrong,
Exactly.
more than trying to prove I was right.
Exactly.
Because I've been probably more wrong than right.
It's almost like, is it better to see what not to do, or is it better to see what to do?
Yeah, it's like a trick question.
It is kind of funny because I would say that it's better to see what to do in that question.
Yeah.
But seeing what to do and seeing what not to do doesn't mean that you're wrong. It's also kind of different.
Yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
nice to see what
No,
not
I
to do, because you know what's not going to work.
Yeah, but if you notice, seeing when you're right and seeing when you're wrong is after the fact, and seeing what to do or what not to do
It's before.
is before. You know, so there is slightly a different kind of vibe. Right,
Yeah, I
Keith?
think both. I mean, both are obviously important. You want to try and figure out where you're wrong, and figure out where to be right.
Yeah, it's like to the car thing. Is like it's better to see what to do, which is get your oil changed when you need it, than
Yeah.
you don't. I don't know. So is a car. The one thing I don't have.
And
I have a great little '93 Honda.
nice.
I used to have a 2002 Honda Civic EX. That was cool, but I gave that car to somebody. Ha!
Those things they can last forever. You can get like 1,000,000 miles out of those things.
Exactly. I was gonna say that's a serious gift. These cars are amazing. I would be so sad. It's such a junker, but if it broke or I had to get another car, I'd be so sad. It works just right. It starts every time. It runs just like I need it. Low gas mileage. I mean, it's a wonderful car.
No, you keep it. I mean, wealthy people, for the most part, like the smart ones, don't go out and spend money on new cars. Kind of like Dave Ramsey says, like, you just get a car that works, get you from A to B, and why spend all this money so you can just roll around in something that looks pretty, but it's costing you an arm and a leg? Just save your money and invest it in things that make your life better and set you up for the long run, so you can free yourself from working if you want to.
Yeah, and that's true. But like in LA, it's so weird because being in entertainment, everyone's such a bullshitter, and everybody wears this fake face. It's like, say I lease a car, right, and I have a nice Mercedes, right? I pull up to a meeting or people see me and they're like, oh, Trevor Wesley, and I'm pulling up in a nice car, that means pay me, right? Because I rolled up in my Honda Civic before and people were like, that's your car? Like, people are so judgmental that at the same time, you know, like, in entertainment, like, I feel like that's the only thing. Because it's like you're setting the precedence, like, oh, I pull up in a nice car. You haven't seen my house, so you don't know if I live in a box. But if you see my car and you see me and I'm dressed well or whatever, that means that obviously someone's paying me. So that means if we're going to talk about anything, you better pay me too, right? But if you pull up in a piece of crap and then you're like, pay me this or that, they're like, you don't make that, you know?
Yeah, it is weird how, like, sometimes to work in the world, to make business happen, you have to. Sometimes it could be a smart thing to have that nicer car.
It's like a really hot girl, right? If she sees on your Instagram that you used to date really ugly girls, she's gonna be like, I'm not your type, you're not my type, right? But if she sees that you're with a bunch of hot chicks, she's gonna be like, oh yeah, this will work.
Yep.
It's weird.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I've always lived in a kind of small, it's the capital of Oregon, but a kind of small city and kind of lower middle class people. So I've never really, I mean, you still get that thing in middle class. People buy the new Camry to show off, you know?
And then they're stuck with payments over their heads.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think I've really been around people like that, but then I haven't been around people like with that much money, that's all.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I'd rather just buy my stuff outright. I don't want to do payments. I learned that lesson. I think debt is slavery, and you should not be in debt to anybody.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah.
You know, the debtor is the slave, and the one who loans him the money is the slave master.
The worst kind of debt really is being white, when everybody cares about history, and then you have a debt that you owe from whatever happened in the past. Like, damn, my skin color is a debt that I owe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a really, like, cheesy thought, like, typical cringe thought every time somebody talks about, like, my ancestors. And I think a lot of people think this, because it's really true, but a lot of white people moved to America after slavery was outlawed. So they kind of think, like, dang, what do I have to do with this? When slavery was going on, my ancestors weren't even in this country.
Also, there's the numbers have been skewed. It's just like the media highlighting the relatively low frequency of white on black crimes and not showing the high frequency of black on white. When it comes to slavery, I think it's something less than 2% of white people during the peak of slavery actually owned slaves out of the total population.
Right.
Most of those were going to be the elite, which included several prominent black people who were slave masters and owned slaves. I think probably the first on record was a black man.
Plus,
And Jews owned slaves, and no one gives them any crap about it. They own the boats. No one cares about the Arabs who sold them or the black kings who sold them.
And nobody gives credit to the whites that end slavery.
Right. It was white people in the Western world that pushed for the end of slavery overwhelmingly. Because of them, it was actually it was banned in the UK. Yeah.
And Africa still has slaves. Africa was the dealer.
Exactly.
And they sold it to the Arabs, and then the white people bought the slaves. So, like, at the end of the day, it's like it's good to be grateful and see your blessings too, because, you know, it's unfortunate that history happens in certain ways, but it's best to not be attached and have emotional feelings about it, but really just see it as what it is and be like, damn, that's the way it was, and that's it, and be grateful to where we're at now, that, you know, we didn't have to go through that, and we get to. I'm saying we. But I'm Irish, right? Supposedly, that's the thing. Irish were slaves. I don't care, you know?
Yeah.
Someone triggered.
Yeah, me either. I don't mean to be, like, brutal or anything, but I don't really care about... Slavery doesn't really affect me. I don't think
it doesn't affect anything at all.
Well, nobody's a slave right now.
Right.
I mean, actually, technically, we are all slaves, because the government... It's like you don't really own anything, right? You think that if you bought property and you bought land in America, that you're actually purchasing your own land where it's yours. But you got zoning, or
if you stop paying taxes, just watch how quickly the government takes it back.
Yeah, you don't own anything. Like, even if you own property, you're still renting.
Yeah, why are you paying taxes on something over and over and over? You bought it, and it's like they're charging you sales tax every year.
It's insane. I ask people in my life all the time, like, where's the line? Where's the tax line? You know, you always hear people say, like, our ancestors went to war over a 3% tax on tea, and now we're, like, half of our paychecks are taxed.
Exactly.
And everyone's like, well, it's just the fair thing to do to give half your paycheck away to some government.
Right. Those are the real battles that no one, and that's why the media, this communist media, in my analysis, it's people need to overcome that, and if they get out of their feelings, we'll all realize that we are all being played for fools.
Yeah, they almost take 40% of our income tax. They take sales tax.
Gas
and
tax.
I drive around in LA and I look and there's potholes. Like, where's our money going? You know, like why are there some nice areas where it looks like their tax dollars go towards something, and then there's other areas where it's not, and it's all still Los Angeles. Like, I know it comes down to your community and the people that live there that want their community to be nice, you know, because there is that mentality of people that are like, oh, someone else will clean it up, and they throw the trash on the ground or litter or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, where are our tax dollars going? Why is it, if we the people have the government assign, you know, government leaders and stuff, and we vote them in and all that stuff, and they're supposed to work for us, why is it that we have to be accountable to the government with auditing and, you know, accountability of how much money we make and all that? But we don't get to audit them and ask, well, where's our money going? You know, exactly. It's like we are slaves in that aspect.
Yeah.
You know, we're just a number.
There's all these jobs that are useless in government. They just keep creating more positions and taking our money. And that's the real fight. If Americans wake up and realize that it isn't the skin color that divides us, it's the class. It's the super ultra wealthy elite.
And it's the spirit we serve.
You know, and
the character and morality of our life. It's what's going to determine the class. And of course, coming from money is great, but money doesn't. You could be super ghetto and have money and lose it all. So it's about character and about recognizing right and wrong, so that you can have class yourself. You know, it's not. It's. I don't know how to say it, but it's like, you know, you could if you could have a millionaire's mindset. I bet you, like, if someone like Trump, right, because he's made $1 million many times. If he had no money at all, he could still make money. He could get it back, I bet. And that's what I want. I want to be able to get that mindset where it's no big deal, and I know how to make $1 million from nothing. You know, it's a trick.
You know, that's actually kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Last time I talked to you too, the kind of left-right divide going on. I see a lot of similarities between that and the black and white divide and the male and female divide. And trust me, I'm not like super sensitive on like multicultural issues and diversity and stuff like that. But sometimes I feel like I'm not accusing you guys of this at all, but I've definitely been like over the line of just factual before. You know, you don't want to lie about something for somebody's feelings, like just say people are all the same, but you also don't want to just start hating a group of people because you notice something bad about them too.
Yeah.
And I think that the people that push the diversity stuff can also push that like hate stuff from our end even. You know what I mean? To kind of widen that gap and like fuel the fire.
Well, that's exactly if you look at the people since World War II and before that, the elite, the actual elite that we should be worried about, are purposely trying to force an ungodly amount of immigration onto Western nations because it happens so fast that you cannot assimilate. These people coming in do not adopt our way of life. They bring in their way of life, and they know it causes problems. It's just like Muhammad Ali would say, and he was not wrong. When he woke up, he wasn't coming from a place of hate. I shared a video on my Instagram with an interview where he's laughing and joking about how black music is different from white music, and he was just making fun of all the different cultures, just like Jesse Lee would. But he recognized that we are different, and if we rush that process and it's unnaturally forced on a population, you get nothing but conflict, you know. And and people tend to group with their own. Like Blue Jays tend to fly with Blue Jays, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like the way they force.
I love that
integration.
video.
Yeah, it's a great little sketch, and he's totally being happy and coming from a place of love. That you can see that his team is made up of this white guys behind him at the gym and black guys, and they are laughing. They're having a great time, realizing that we are uniquely different, and that's okay.
And that's the funny thing is like 10 years ago, like I'd hang out with people of all different ethnicities, and they used to tell me like, "Yo, Trev, what's that one racist joke? Say it again." Like nobody was sensitive, and it's like I always use this, it's a Small World reference. Like how boring of a ride would that be to go on It's a Small World, and it was just all the same people. Like you don't get to appreciate different cultures, you know. Not saying one's better than the other, but the different is what makes life exciting. You know, the traveling is great because you get to experience different cultures and see different things. And I love different and learning about other people, and it shouldn't be about.
Yeah, we shouldn't all be the same.
That's why it's all hatred and either angry or hate.
Yeah, like I think there's a guy, a Navy commander named God, I forget his name, but anyways, he said he served in World War II, and he says if Israel is a Jewish state and they're allowed to want to stay Jewish, and China is a Chinese nation and if it wants to stay Chinese, that's okay. Japan wants to stay Japanese. Why is that okay? But a white country can't say we'd like to stay white and keep our traditions alive. It's because the media.
We don't even say we want to be all white. We just say we want to stay 51% white.
Well, yeah. Just to keep our traditions. It's what makes this country unique. Just like Ghana is unique because it's made of people from Ghana and their culture. But the media is twisting people's minds, and you can see how they really want to destroy the Western nations using all the other nations and convincing them to be angry and feel like, oh, you have a right to just take from this culture and replace it, and that's not fair. Like we shouldn't do that to Japan. It would be wrong if they try to flood Japan with Americans and Chinese. Japan should stay Japanese.
And that thing about it is like America is so unique, right? And that's such a beautiful thing because it is multicultural. But it's almost like it's used against us as Americans, whether you're black, white, Asian, or whatever it is like that should be celebrated because it isn't Japan, it's America. But at the same time, you know, it has traditional values and culture in its own, which is like the values of Christianity and stuff like that, and it's all being destroyed. And growing up, I never thought that America had value, culture, because I assumed that the culture of America was the different cultures that had in it, right? But then I realized
that's a lie that we're supposed to believe.
Yep.
It's like our culture is a little mix of every culture, a little meaningless mix.
And it's not true. Prior to 1965, before the Immigration Act, this country was like 95% white mixed. It was a European-based culture. It was a mix of the European nations.
But the argument people have is that it was stolen from the Indians, and from what I've learned in history of, because you hear different narratives of history, is that there was a battle and a war and a fight, and that it was won. It wasn't stolen, it was won.
Right. Just like saying, you can use that for anything. Parts of Africa belong to different nations.
And before the Indians were here, someone else was here.
Right. And it's just...
Like it's really God's land, But it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's why I don't stand behind any, I don't think illegal immigrants should be here, but I've heard some guys talking about, certain groups of people should be sent to certain places, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I just think people should be allowed to balkanize and kind of separate off how they want to. And nobody gets kicked out of anywhere, and everybody voluntarily.
The issue, though, is that what I came to realize is that this is a European country founded by European Christians, and to maintain that, to maintain what was attractive and why people wanted to come here, because the opportunity, the freedoms that were unique to the people who founded it, because those people they fought to establish a country that gave more freedoms. If we want that to continue to exist, we have to allow that founding stock and their descendants to continue, and I think we shouldn't be just importing people from India and all these places at these record numbers, because it will change the country, and it will not be that free country, which is why we see leftism growing, communism growing, because those numbers are dwindling. The white European Christians overwhelmingly vote for limited government, less taxes, more freedoms, the Second Amendment, where these other cultures don't, because they're coming from communist countries or people, dictatorships, so they're used to being told what to do. They're used to government ruling everything, and it's not good to just bring them in on high numbers. We should make sure that we maintain what made this country unique to begin with, and there's nothing wrong with that. Every other nation gets
I agree.
Yeah, every nation has limits on immigration, and they choose which countries are going to bring value and benefit without changing their culture, and they have a right to do that. Japan has a right to maintain Japanese values, and so should America.
My only concern is that I think about, even if the Republican leaders were in charge and didn't have the Democrats, they have just conceded every issue after issue after issue after issue to the Democrats for I don't even know how many years, like 15 years. And even if they were in charge, I don't think we'd be in good shoes. So I think the people who do think like this need to put our minds together and figure out a place to go to be one. Because I think we're better off together in one spot than we are sprinkled throughout this country, you know?
Yeah. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the guy's name. George Lincoln Rockwell. That was the Navy commander who said, you know, if a black country is allowed to be black, and Asian country is allowed to be Asian, why can't white countries be allowed to be white? Why must they be forced to integrate to the point where they lose their majority in their culture? And he actually, for people who don't know this guy, he actually marched and was a friend of Malcolm X, because they were both kind of saying the same thing, that they recognized that the government was forcing people to mix, like playing mama, like, you guys need to move out of this neighborhood and you need to move over here. They're like, why? We're happy where we're at. I don't want to go to that school. I live over here. I don't need to go to that school. You have to, because we need you all to mix 50-50. And they're making it unnatural and not letting it be a choice.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Can we not work with the leaders of the black community to say, do you not want your own black community? Do you really want to be mixed in? Like, I don't know. There's got to be black people who are like, we want a black family. We want a black culture.
No, there is. There's
culture.
A lot of people like that. And I see a lot of that on social media, too, that, you know, but the thing about it is that there's double standards, because if you're white and you say that, it's good people, there's going to be people saying that, oh, that sounds racist and, you know, that kind of thing. But if you're anything else, if you're Asian and you want to keep an Asian family, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's expected. But if you ever say anything, that's the thing that's interesting and unfortunate is the narratives that they, you know, brainwash people to think. And at the end of the day, it's like equality means that everybody is treated the same, and it doesn't mean there's going to be equal outcomes. I saw someone posted something about, because of this, you know, this new thing with the cop putting his knee on the guy. Someone said that black people are treated unfairly, not only in America but around the world. And the first thing I thought was like, well, by who? Like, white people only make up 11 to 13% of the whole world.
Right, and we
so
don't
how could 11 to 13% treat you all unfairly? Like,
yeah, who's doing it to Africans? Africans are doing it to themselves.
Exactly. But maybe that's what they meant. Maybe they meant that, but it doesn't make, you know, with the narrative that they're, I would highly doubt it.
And that's why I've been pushing hard for people to study what happened to Germany between World War I and World War II, and realize that the same program that happened there, the media was not owned by Germans, and the media was purposely degenerating the culture. Berlin was the first city to do a transgender operation. It was the Sin City of the West. Everything was legal there. Everything was tolerated, and it was just completely degenerated. And the people were suffering. The dollar was useless. The German unit of money, and they got sick of it because of the banks that destroyed it. These foreign powers, and so like history's not what you think it is. Everything's kind of upside down. And when people let go of the emotion, you can start to analyze it without anger, and see like that we're all being played. All of us. It's communism. That's the real enemy, which is Satanism, which is the devil's thinking.
I think the reason they can get away with convincing all of the people that the small group, 12% of white people, are what was the word you used? Oppressing people all around the world, is because there actually is a very tiny, small group of very, very powerful people who are oppressing people all over the world, and we all feel that. we all notice that when we've been saving our whole life and our savings half its value.
And the thing that I think about, like if you're going to really think about it, it's like money and power runs the world, right? And banks are the ones that run all that have the money, right? Because if you ever Google who owns the America USA, it's going to be the federal banks or the Federal Reserve banks, and who owns all the banks?
Yeah, the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, these elite families, like that have been running politics for you. When you are worth a couple $100 trillion, even just $1 trillion, that's an ungodly amount. You don't inherit land, you inherit nations.
Yeah. And there's never gonna be an end to people who will do anything they ask for large sums of money.
Exactly. $10 million to most people, they'll do whatever the hell you want.
And they'll say whatever you want.
Vilest thing. So that's why, I mean, I just wonder if you guys think I'm crazy about maybe us starting to brainstorm about, I'm not saying everybody think about pick up and move, but think about sort of some sort of scenario where, maybe the Northwest is vulcanized and the Southwest is vulcanized.
I think that's,
I don't know.
That is definitely going to be, there's no way to reverse this. I mean, if I was president, I would stop immigration completely.
Yeah.
I would allow it to continue for Western European countries because we need to keep those numbers because they have the same values and culture, and that's what people love about America. It's not because I don't love the other people, but they don't share our values. So, and I don't want communists are depending on that. We're facing a communist takeover, and if people don't understand how communists work, they're never going to understand what's happening and why we're being played, and that's really it. Like we're either gonna exactly. We either fall for it. We're either going to become the next USSR, or we're going to push back, and maybe we should break up, and there should be different regions where maybe the next United States is not going to be the whole continent that we're on right now. It'll just be a portion of it. But hopefully not, because that makes us weaker and more susceptible to issues. If California was to become a communist country, that would be terrible to have that as a neighbor.
California right now.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want them as a neighbor. I would hate for them to gain that territory where we live.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think we have to push back because I don't think it's not safe to share this land with communists, and that's what we're facing. They're atheists. They hide behind religion. They pretend they're religious. The Rothschilds may be ethnically of that religion, that crucified Jesus, but they don't practice it. They don't believe in a God. They believe in power and money, and they give real hardworking people who follow the Torah and the Old Testament a bad name.
Oh yeah, well I think first and foremost we should just remember to be faithful because God is faithful, and think about how many times He was faithful to His children in a terrible spot.
What was that?
So I mean,
be faithful.
I said be faithful to God because God will be faithful to us. And as crazy as everything seems, we can just remember how many times He's been faithful when His flock was in a bad spot.
Yeah, I agree. It's just different now. I'm so thankful to have met Jesse and people like Trevor and everyone from Bond, because that helped me synthesize these ideas and things that I may have known were true, but when I was operating from anger, I couldn't understand the message right or get it across in the right way, because people would say, "Oh," and I would blanket the whole group. It's all Jews or it's all Catholics, and now I get it. Like, it's good and evil. Some groups are disproportionately represented in these communist groups, but it's not all.
And there's no special words to articulate to communicate the most perfect sentence to make someone understand. What it comes down to is the spirit behind what you're saying, and if you have no hatred or anger, then you can't go wrong. You're going to be able to, all that's left is love. So it's really looking to discover and understand with other people. Like that's what the kind of conversations I like. Is I'm open to hearing anything, but it's the anger and the spirit behind it that throws me off. Like, let's discover together what's going on and see where we're wrong and how we could be accountable and making sure it stops, or, you know, how to overcome it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've really been, not on purpose because I heard you guys or Jesse. I've seen Jesse Lee Peterson's videos for a year or more, and I always liked them. But I never really took the anger thing he was saying to heart. But my family has an issue with anger, and my dad can be really angry, and my mom can be really angry and pretend she's not angry, and it's passed on to me and my brothers, and we can be really angry. And I noticed I was just finding faults with everybody in my life, and I noticed my brothers do it too, and they would just pick things they don't like out of the day and just like dig in on it, like how somebody dresses or what somebody likes or how something smelled or just something negative, and it was just always from a place of hate. And I've really had problems with addictions, and I've been asking God to help me just because I'm weak and I can't do it without Him. And I kind of got sick recently, and it made it so I really didn't want to do this thing I'm addicted to. It's kind of like a drink, like a tea. It's called Kratom or Kratom.
Oh, yeah. Kratom.
Yeah, we know. I've heard of that.
And that helped me get off something called methadone, which is really scary.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one, man.
But, I mean, I've never been able to do things myself, and I think the intention of my heart, I really hated it. I really didn't want to do it. I knew that it was a sin, that I was idolizing it and putting an addiction before God. Instead of asking God for help, I was looking at myself and this other thing that I was idolizing. And that's like basically one of the worst sins you can do. And I just feel so convicted and have like been seeing all of the things I'm doing wrong.
That's amazing, man.
And even last time I called you, I said something that I didn't like about what Jesse Lee Peterson said. And instead of looking at his fruit, I was looking at one thing he said once and was looking for a problem with it.
Right.
And that's not how we're supposed to judge somebody. We're supposed to look at their fruit. And he has good fruit.
Exactly. And maybe, I said that's the ego. Maybe we're misunderstanding it. So before we commit to saying, well, that makes him wrong and it ruins everything, just say, all right, well, I think I heard what he said, but let me wait and clarify it. Like, that's a lot of people don't give a chance for that. You know, they judge you too fast before they understand what you're saying. Like Trevor says, language is limited. So we should strive to make sure that we're asking several questions to make sure we get the answer we need before we just write people off.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't write him off, and I didn't even want to say anything bad. I was just trying to think of somewhere I disagreed with something he had said, and I guess I was dwelling on it. But that's not how you're supposed to analyze people. You're supposed to look at them overall. God, if you're looking for one thing anyone said, then you can corner anybody. You know?
Right. Well, that's amazing, man. I know Smitty wanted to call in, but do you have any final questions for us, Seth?
Oh, yeah. No, good to talk to you guys. I was just happy to call in.
Hey, just keep, when it comes to the addictions and stuff, like I said, I've been there, done that, bro. 20 plus years of drinking and smoking and binging. Just do what Jesse says. Observe yourself, and don't judge yourself if you do have a drink or a smoke. Just watch. Watch what it does. Watch what it's doing to you. And when you see yourself doing it, you'll be like, wow, this really does suck. Like, I don't like it. It makes me get into my head. My mind's racing. And in that observation, it will fall away.
All right, well, thanks, guys. Good to talk.
All right, man. Thank you for calling, bro.
Later, Seth.
Peace.
See ya.
All right, Smitty, before we wrap it up, you're the last one. Let's see. Were you a Wu-Tang fan, Trevor? They're talking about Wu-Tang.
Poontang?
Poontang Clan.
Oh. I never really got into Wu-Tang. I didn't, like, listen to it like that. I like Cypress Hill more.
Cypress Hill was cool.
I don't know why I thought of them like I'm comparing them like they're different, but I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe if I heard their songs more, I'd be like, oh yeah, Wu-Tang. I couldn't name any songs.
Smitty.
Smitty.
What's up, fellas?
What's up, bud?
Nothing. Yeah, I just had like a question real quick. You know, it was in regards to the video, not the most recent one. It has to do with the old man that got beat up by the 20-year-old black kid.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the old man, I think his last name was Bledsoe. I'm not sure. Norman Bledsoe.
The nursing home.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, I wanted to ask you guys, I mean, what should white people do? I mean, should we collectivize somewhat, or just, I mean, what do you think?
Trevor?
No, I think it's like, it's kind of like the Biden thing. You know, Biden says, oh, you ain't black, right? And the left has been saying so many things about racism and Trump and stuff that now the right is all charged because they're like, you guys have been saying all this. It's like, that's racist, right? And I think it's interesting because I don't really know what to do, but I know it's like there's so many narratives about, you know, black injustice and stuff, and the stats don't reflect exactly what the media narrates.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, well, what do? Do you point out as a white person? Is it become a competition where you're like, I'm gonna post videos of all the black people hurting white people, and then the black people are like, I'm gonna post videos of all the white. You know, it's like what's the right way to do it? You know, it's hard to say. You know, because I know, someone called in Jesse and said something of it, and they've said that what you should do when people bring up, you know, the injustices or whatever, then you bring up the injustices of the white people getting attacked by the black people. And I think when people are committed to a misunderstanding, you can't convince anybody. So of course you don't want to lay down and get, you know, screwed over, you know, and allow people to be brainwashed and blinded. I just say you speak up the truth in the best way you know how, and be honest without being angry, and let the angry people self-destruct.
I would say to that question, because I wrestled with being a socialist, thinking I liked socialism at one point, and then waking up being conservative, but still having anger about, like, you know, how World War II went down, and thinking I knew who's behind it, and I was still blanketing whole groups. The difference now, and I touch on topics that are pretty taboo for most people, like, you know, World War II, and, you know, and like you would, you know, like Europa, and the information you would find in those kind of documentaries. But the difference is now I can share it, and I let the words come to me. I don't try and force it. It just comes naturally. And lately, since I've been doing this, I've seen actually more positive responses from people, especially on Facebook, and people who watch my stories on Instagram, and they may not say anything, they stay quiet, but they keep watching it. And all I can tell them when they do question me and say, this sounds like hate speech, I'm saying, well, I'm not coming from a place of hate. What I'm doing is I'm speaking up about the truth, and we can't, that's all I can do. And like Trevor said, some people are going to hate you, but what I've noticed is that the people who like it, like on Facebook, people quietly like these comments. I put information about the greatest story never told, which shows exactly how the Allied forces were the ones who were being the evil ones in World War II, and how they were wrong in so many ways. And it's funny how many people actually like that, but they would never have the courage to speak up on their own about it, and maybe because they have anger, it would come out the wrong way. So I found more. Yeah. It's like catching more flies with honey than with lemons or salt, whatever the hell. Like, you find a way to say it, but you have to overcome the anger. And then those who will get it, and that it might inspire them to stand up finally. And then white people will not be scared. They also won't be angry, but they won't be scared to hold their ground and to say what's right. I think that's the biggest issue. Get over the anger so you're not scared anymore, and also so you don't go overboard and become what they want you to become, a hateful white person.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with mostly what you guys are saying. I mean, I'm not saying white people that need to go full retard with it. You know, start wearing Viking clothes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to wear any lederhosen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we do have to be conscious of it. I mean,
yeah.
See what's going to happen if we're not.
And it's kind of like what Jesse says. Just keep telling people, you got to wake up, white people. Like, you have to wake up. And too many of them, they're demoralized. They're so scared of being called racist or anti-Semite They won't talk about these patterns and the truth because they don't want anyone to call them a name. And I no longer have a drop of fear about that because I'm not angry when I'm saying it.
And you know what's interesting about that is that a lot of people don't self-examine and really know. It doesn't matter what anybody says about you because what they say doesn't define you. And for a long time, I thought I knew myself, but I didn't because I was controlled by other people because I didn't want people to say something about me. Because I would start to think like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I am acting this way, or maybe that. And then that would cause more conflict because I was losing myself because what other people said mattered to me. But now it's like, I know myself, I know what I'm not, I know what I am. So when people say stuff about me, it's like, that's cool, you can say whatever you want, and it guides me towards the right people that, you know, of all ethnicities, that just understand that spirit.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I just, you know, I don't know, I look at the demographics, and it doesn't look very good, but, you know, I understand I'm supposed to live in the present, and, you know, dwell on that. But, you know, like, I don't really care what happens to me with this. Like, my dad, my pops, he's 73. You know, and I kind of put him in that picture. And, you know, if I saw somebody doing that, I honestly can't tell you what I would do. You know, I mean, I know what I should do. I should just, you know, not overreact to something like that. But, I mean...
Yeah, even like this, what we're doing right now, like what Jesse does, you'll find your own voice. And he would always encourage us. You know, I remember one of the first lessons he would always try and impart was, you'll learn how to do it in your way. Don't force it. You'll grow into it.
Right.
You'll get your identity back, and it'll just be revealed. Like, I don't plan when I share information. I wait for it. I'll take screenshots of interesting things, and then one day it just hits me. I'll be like, oh, I know how to share it now. I know what to say, and then I do it in the moment. But
and it's like, and it's a fine line because I don't want to ever come from a place of trying to convince people things. And stroking my own ego to like try to show everybody that I'm right and they're wrong, you know, like it is a sharing thing, it's sharing information, or it's like whenever I get something new, or you know, whether it's be spiritually or like even things like, oh, I got a little laser pointer, I want to show people what I got, you know, like check this out, because what's the point of having anything if you can't share it? So I think the sharing, even with my music talents, you know, like. I'm not trying to show people my songs or that I can sing because I'm trying to make them see how great I am or anything. It's because, hey, look, like, at the end of the day, giving the glory to God is really it. You're, like, sharing that glory. And as soon as we, like, try to get identity from that, like, I don't get my identity from singing songs or whatever like that. It's, like, really, like, just showing, like, what God created, what I'm able to see is possible that I've been given a gift that I can do and lead it back to God. And that's otherwise you lose. You get conflict. You rub people wrong, you know. And of course, I'm going to rub people wrong either way. But I know where I come from.
Yeah.
So it's like whatever.
No, I mean, I'm past, you know, giving an F about a lot of things. You know, I just, you know, trying to figure out, you know, how we can change this, and I don't even know if it's even possible.
I
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? We don't know. I mean, all I know, like, kind of like with Janitra, how she opened up about realizing in that moment that she's not gonna get the man she wants if she doesn't cut off that relationship because they had sex out of wedlock and they had the kid. So if it's gonna happen, it's because we start living right and speak up and don't expect it because we do it, but we must do it because that is the only way it might happen.
And even more importantly than speaking up is to just be the example. So anyone that you're around, like, they're gonna notice. And you know, it's like the quiet person who works in silence and does things. That's the most effective thing. You know, like people are gonna see you and they're gonna be like, "Dang, like I want to be more. I want some of that."
Yeah, he's not hateful.
And I think the problem is we've been too quiet. I mean, that's kind of how we've gotten to this point.
Exactly.
I mean, and I get what she was saying, but you know, I have kids. You know, they're gonna be out in this world soon in 20, 30 years. You know, it's like, it's a little different than, you know, boyfriend problems.
Right, yeah. But I mean, that's how we start. Like, if we can't even wake up to ourselves and what we're doing wrong, we can't help with these bigger issues. Like, we have to overcome the anger. You can overcome that, then we can tackle it in the right way. And the haters will come at you, and they will say, oh, Smitty and Richard and Trevor, they're a bunch of crazy white guys. It's like, but then you have people like Genitria and Black Victoria and T-Warrior, and here they are. Like, if we were so hateful and supposedly racist, why would we have such good people around us like them?
And I got a whole lot more than that, you know. Like, there's great people of all ethnic. Race is just the fad right now. For whatever reason, it's to control and divide us. And as long as you know that, and that we don't allow it to divide us, that's how we win.
Yeah, because I will stand by people like T and Black Victoria and Genitra before I stand with a white guy who's angry about being replaced. Like, I get it, we are, but you can't fight it with anger.
Yeah.
If you are going to fight it with anger, I can't side with you, because you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot and getting me hurt.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with a lot of that, and I see your point. I feel like T would be a guy that, you know, would have my back.
Exactly.
You know?
Like, we can work in concert.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
I said, like, we can work in concert. Like, when I talk about how God made us unique nations, and Jesse talks about how, you know, we weren't meant to mix per se, you know, I think what's most important is that we can keep our uniqueness, but it's not mutually exclusive from working together for the same basic values. You can still have your culture and like this music or that food, but we can agree on smaller government, Second Amendments, Fourth Amendment, like, you know, the Constitution, and fight to preserve that for the benefit of all of us. And that's our common ground. And we can do that without having to agree on all the other little details, but let's agree on that.
Right. All right, well, I appreciate you guys taking the time and talking to me. What's his name? Johnny McWong wants to know, who did Trevor give his car to? He's dying to know this.
Yeah, when you gave your car away, the last time you had a car?
Oh,
yeah,
no, I kept got a note on my car. I was like, if you want to sell this car, please let me know. And I wasn't driving it much, and it worked fine. But I used to live in this little, like, gated community area that was, like, for these apartments. And I left it parked in my parking space for a long time, and so I got a notice about how I had to move the car or else it's going to be towed and all that stuff. And so I go out to move it, and my battery was dead. So I couldn't move it. And then and as soon as I needed to do that, there was a note on my car, so I called a number, and the guy was like, "You Mexican?" And he actually worked at Park La Brea where I was staying, and he pulled up in a golf cart, and he was like, "Hey man, you know," he was older than me, and he's just like, I really need a car, and I just, you know, wondering if you would sell the car to me, and I was like, you know, it's crazy, man, because I'm gonna either have to spend money on a new battery to move it, or else I'm gonna get it towed, or if I do get it towed today, you know, I'd have to do it, or if I do get it towed, I'm gonna have to spend $500 to get it out, or whatever. It was like that. And I was like, you know what, I don't really need this car right now. I don't know what it was, man. I felt this thing like it was an opportunity for me to give to somebody without anything in return.
Right.
So I was like, you know what, man, you can have the car. And his reaction was amazing, because he was just like, what? Like, he couldn't believe it, because I knew he needed it. He had a family. He had no car.
Yeah.
And so I just told him, you can have it, man. And that was it. It was a random dude.
Very nice.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I recently gave away a car then to a family member who works on them. I mean, it was either I was going to pour a bunch of money into it, or they could have it and do something with it. So, yeah. All right, man. Well, you guys have a good evening. I appreciate it.
You too. God bless you, Smitty.
Later.
All right, guys. Well,
that concludes our broadcast day.
Thank you, guys. Lin Chan dropped the super chat.
Oh, no way.
Thank you, Lin.
Do that little special Lin Chin sound.
So thank you guys for still hung in here this long. Always fun. We may be back tomorrow. Just have a good night. Be well. Stay out of your head. All is well. All the time.
That's Lin Chin's robot sound. Pros and cons. The world blames dad when it's really your mom.
Good night, guys.